No. What I believe is that what's happening in Iraq now is a direct function of the violence, direct function of the Sunni being out of power and the Shia being in power. Shia don't want to relinquish any of their power, the Sunni want to be back in power. And I think unless there's a political reconciliation between those two groups, there cannot be peace in Iraq, cannot be security in Iraq. And so what do you do to maximize the chances of that happening? Now, I'd be the first to tell you, nobody can predict what's going to happen in Iraq, not if they're being honest. There's no way to know that. You know that. You know that. You know that as well as I do. But what I believe is that the best chance of that happening is to shift the responsibility to them. I think what America should be doing is leaving Iraq. We ought to be drawing. I draw 40. If I were president today, I'd draw 40 to 50,000 troops out immediately. I would continue that redeployment out of Iraq of combat troops over the course of about a year, so that all the combat troops were out in about a year. Now, I will tell you, I think most of those troops will come home. I do think we need to maintain some presence in Kuwait, next door, and probably going to have to put some more troops into Afghanistan, which has gone the wrong direction. But we also, I think, need to maintain a naval presence in the Persian Gulf. Now, while we're leaving, the other thing we ought to be doing that we're not doing is engaging the Iranians and the Syrians directly to help them stabilize, get them to help stabilize Iraq, because we're no longer an occupying force in Iraq. They have an incentive to help stabilize it. They don't want to see refugees. They don't want to see a broader Middle East conflict. They have a reason to help provide some stability in Iraq. And so we want the Iranians and the Syrians to participate in helping to provide that stability. And then the last thing the President needs to do is, because we failed to do it in the past, is while our troops are being taken out and while we're engaging these other countries, the President of the United States needs to be preparing for the worst. I mean, it's not things that people want to talk about or think about, but it's something we have totally failed to do in Iraq up until now. We know we can't predict what's going to happen, so I think we have to develop a policy and a plan for containment. I mean, if we leave, or if we stay for that matter, and civil war broke out in a just totally out of control civil war, we have to have a plan, not just us, by the way, but us and the rest of the world has to have a plan for dealing with it and containing it so that it doesn't spill outside the borders of Iraq. It's a very hard thing because historically containment of civil war has not been very successful. But we need a plan for dealing with this, and we need to be prepared for the worst. And the President of the United States needs to be completely honest with the American people, not only about what's happened in the past, which I think is crucial, but also what's happening now and what could happen in the future, so that we're prepared, so that we know, and we have a plan to deal with it if the thing goes completely south on us. That's what I do in Iraq.